Welcome to the Escaping the Accountant's Trap podcast. It's a podcast to help accountants, CPAs, and bookkeepers escape what we call the accountant's trap. It's where accountants are not getting paid for their value and are forced to work long hours with high demanding clients with little pay. Well, how do you escape the trap? One way is the topic of today's episode, and that's by helping accountants solve their talent challenges by hiring US based remote accountants. To help me with the discussion, I've invited Jeff Phillips, the co-founder of AccountingFly, to this podcast. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hey, Adam. It's awesome to be with you and your audience. This is going to be a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think this is an important topic to our listeners because a lot of accountants feel like they are the business. Without them, the business just doesn't run. And so they would love help, but they would love help that they can trust. So I guess talk to us a little bit about why you started AccountingFly and what it really solves for accountants.
Well, I think the headline is that I hear this phrase, and I guarantee you hear it too. I'm the bottleneck. You ever hear that?
Yes, all the
Uh,
time.
and I think what makes accountants so great at serving their clients is also the same things that make them struggle at delegating and building teams and managing and hiring and sort of just making that happen. So they do become the bottleneck. We started Accounting Fly 11 years ago to be a resource for accounting firms to be able to hire accountants very easily. And through a long and winding process over the first 4 or 5 years we were in business, we ultimately decided, our mission was we wanted to solve the talent crisis for accounting. That was
Okay.
how we got into business. But we learned so much along the way, like you always do when you start a business. And one of the things that became very clear to us was that accounting firms were not going to be able to predictably and reliably hire people in their market. And this is like in 2015. This is pre-COVID-19
Okay.
pandemic. And so we found that two interesting things were happening. Firms could predictably and reliably hire talent if they stopped caring where the talent worked.
Mhm.
And the talent was increasingly desiring flexible work arrangements, i.e., work from remote and work from home and work remotely. So Accountify existed to match those two people together, the job seeker who wants a remote job and the firm who's ready to hire a full-time or a contractor remotely. And so that was, we've been in business for 11 years. I mean, last week we got 1,400 applications for
Wow.
just remote accounting full-time jobs. We're, you know, we I always tell people we've learned a lot through trial and error, but we're hiring hundreds of people a year, and so learn from our mistakes so that we can
Yeah.
help you make a good hire the next time.
Yeah. And that sort of leads to my next question in terms of how's an accountant or bookkeeper who own a practice know the type of person they should be hiring?
You know, I I have to paint in broad strokes because if I was talking to one particular person, I'd be able to answer a lot of questions. But I think
Yeah.
it starts with thinking about an intentional strategy about who it is that you need. I mean, I think you probably know, oh, I need a tax person. Oh, I need a cast person. I need somebody who's got some experience as a controller. Like you know what the pain point is in your
Yeah.
firm. So what are you willing to delegate and let go of
Mm.
so that you can scale your firm? Then I would be thinking about like, well, okay, what are my options for hiring locally? What is my strategy? Where do I need to hire somebody who lives in the office with me or works in my city? What could I possibly hire remotely in the US, whether it's full time or maybe it's I bring in a contractor to help me just work a tax season and I hire that person remotely. And then there's other options like when would it be appropriate to hire offshore? And there's a lot of economic benefits to going offshore. There's some really good vendors out there. We don't do that, but I know that game. So, start with the position and then think about very intentionally and carefully what your strategy should be about local versus remote versus offshore. And I think if I can add one more thing, Adam, it's like there's a mindset shift before you really were ready to do this. You've got to be willing to let go of some of the work that you're probably doing as an owner
Mm.
and be ready to delegate that to somebody else. And if you've never done that before, it's hard. And it's always hard. So
Yeah.
you got to let go a little bit and build become the person that's building the system that's delivering the services and products rather than being the person that is the service for your
Yeah,
clients. And so that mindset
absolutely.
shift has to change.
Yeah, I agree with you. So let's go through an example of an accountant that you've helped connect remote employees with. What was the accountant doing that they now were able to take off their plate and delegate to somebody else?
That's an awesome question. So I'll preface it by saying in every situation, we always overestimate how quickly we're going to be able to just delegate and let go of everything.
Yeah.
It's a slow process. So what I always say, it's almost a warning. You're going to have to invest a little bit more at the beginning, and then you will be able to let go and let the new hire do the work. So
Mm,
I think about an owner of a firm in Ohio that we helped not about a year ago, and that owner was essentially running a $1.5 million tax and accounting practice, and he was doing all of the tax review himself. I mean,
mm,
these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of returns. Not he hired a recruitment agency locally in Ohio to try to fill a tax manager role. Man, he was looking for 18 months,
mm.
and the local search firm could not find anybody. No big surprise there. And so he was able to hire a remote tax manager, CPA, who had been running a tax practice at a fully remote firm, and that person was on the other side of the country. I think they were in New Jersey. So it was challenging because the owner of the firm is was a detail oriented high performer who wanted to get things right. So
Yeah.
it was tough in that handoff period. But over time, he was able to let go of hundreds of hours of work during the busy seasons, and hand off a lot of the management of the tax program to this manager. So now what the owner is getting involved in is more tax planning, more tax strategy, and going upstream with his clients, getting more revenue per client, and it's a happy ending. It's hard at first, but and it's messy, but he's very happy with the result now.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like in this example, he was able to delegate a lot of the lower value work, and he was able to then take on the higher value, higher paying, and
Yeah.
higher value client work.
And a critical part of his firm, I mean, it
Yeah.
generates 60-70% of his revenue, but,
Mm.
he was able to delegate that critical piece, but he freed him to work on something that was very important to the firm, like, that hadn't been built yet, building out a new product. I mean, it's all about how can you generate more revenue per client. I feel like part of the accountant trap is we're getting too little revenue per client, and that does trap us in
Yeah.
overwork, and, so we try to flip that.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey there, Adam here from the Escaping the Accountant's Trap podcast. I'd like to personally invite you to a free masterclass that we're conducting this Thursday called How to Start a CFO Service. To register, just go to thecfoproject.com and click free training at the top. See you then. You brought up a good point earlier. Increasingly accountants or people that want to work in the accounting industry that want a job, they love to work remote, especially, since COVID, this is, a lot of people want to work from home. But I'm assuming that there's a lot of accountants who want to hire and they're hesitant about hiring remote. What would you say to those that they're just hesitant about hiring? They just, for years and years, they've always had somebody sitting at the desk next to them or in their office. How do you help them overcome the quality of the service and the service delivery and managing somebody remote?
I I think you have to start with the 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 highest trends that we have. It is so incredibly difficult and challenging to make a hire in your market that you're now essentially sacrificing quality to be able to hire where you live.
Mm,
So if you're in Tulsa, there's 560 CPAs in Tulsa if you're hiring for a CPA. I'm making that number up. I'm
yeah.
just trying to give an example here. So they're all employed. We are at almost 0% unemployment for accounting and auditors.
Wow.
That means everyone has a job. And so in order to get someone to move from one employer to you as an employer, it isn't as simple as just posting a job on monster.com. and
Right.
and oh yeah, sure, I'll apply. We've got to do something drastically different.
Because your pool is much smaller. If you're in Tulsa, your pool is very, very small.
Small, and how are you really differentiating so
Right.
much? Are you going to offer 50% more pay?
Yeah.
Are you going to offer 50% as greater flexibility? Probably not. So it's a they're looking at you as a commodity. Now zoom out and pretend that your candidate opportunity is the United States. So now we have a candidate population of 670,000 CPAs who increasingly are demanding work from home opportunities. And even saying that they will leave their job if they are required to work in the office full time
Mm.
because the cat's out of the bag, so to speak. We're not going back into that traditional office environment, and we need to talk about how to make this work. But I guess my point is, you don't really have a choice here. That this labor trend has happened. You've gotta go with it rather than swim upstream against it. It
Mm.
is in your best interest to do it, and the data is clear to us. I mean, it's a wider candidate pool, so you can find the best available candidate for the position. You're filling jobs in 40 days as opposed to 2 years.
Wow.
I think we can agree that is a win, and you're giving candidates what they value most. What they value most in this profession is the ability to have flexibility and work life balance, and it is out of balance. I'm not saying the office is wrong. The office is going to go away. Keep your office. If you can hire somebody in your market, hire them. But you got to think long term about the hiring strategy of your firm and understand that if you do get lucky in Tulsa, the next time you won't be lucky. And the remote has to be a part of the strategy. Has to.
Yeah. That makes sense. What are some tips for managing a remote employees to get the most out of them?
Yeah, it's hard at first,
Yeah.
because there's two main concerns. One is I can't see you. I don't know if you're working, and the other is you're not in my office, and so how could I possibly have culture if you're not in
Mm.
my office? Those are the two biggest pieces of pushback I
Yeah.
get. You know, there are probably now hundreds of accounting firms that are fully remote, and they're so fun to watch them be entrepreneurial and experiment their way into success here with people. So, you know, sorry, I know we're editing this, but I just had an alert go off. Sorry.
It's all right.
I gotta silence that. I thought I silenced everything. I'm so sorry. I turn my do not disturb. Okay. Won't happen again. We can just jump back right into it.
Perfect.
Because I'd start out where there's two, there's two issues here. So I think it starts with one, understanding that this next hire that's going to be remote is going to be a totally different experience for you, and you're going to
Mm.
have to be uncomfortable. We have a saying: ready, fire, aim.
Yeah.
You're
It's
going to
like
have to
ready
get
and
into this,
fire. Yeah.
but you've got to have the technology. You've got to have let's say if you're doing tax returns, you've got to have an ability to log in remotely to your tax software, to your accounting software.
Yeah.
It's
And
best
there's a
to
lot of
have.
those on the market today. A lot. They're great.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And good chat products, Teams, Slack. You and I are chatting over a video chat product. But we like Zoom, we like Teams.
Yeah.
So just get these basics. But what I would the best firms that we see have this kind of nice combination of in person and remote.
Mm.
Air travel is not very expensive right now, and if you have remote employees but you have an office, fly them in for training, then fly them in once a month. Then after 3 months, move it to about once a quarter, and then they're getting together their mentor or the owner or their team, and this kind of answers this second question that I propose, like how do you extend culture? How you meet weekly online, how you have one-on-ones, which is on Zoom, how you do team meetings. None of that changes because someone's in another city.
Yeah.
So have a system of getting them in front of their team periodically on in person, and have recurring meetings on video. As far as quality of work, that's going to require a change of mindset too, but I think it's for the best. Part of letting go and I think escaping the trap is trusting other people to do their best work.
Yeah.
You don't just let it all go and hope for the best.
Yeah.
This is where like great project management software can help you run a firm with remote talent. There are products out there that help you understand that the work is getting done. We care about the results. I know a firm that we hire for. It is 100% female owned and employed, and they every single one in this firm is a mom, and they have just thrown the rule book out the window. There are no rules around when we work. It's fully remote 100%. The expectations are we get our work done, we're available for team meetings and client meetings as needed, and then I don't care because you have a sick kid, you got to go home, fine, we'll cover for you.
Mm.
You've got to handle something at the house, we cover for you. We're not asking questions. You don't have to put it on the calendar. We don't have to. We're trusting you to get the work done. And by the way, I mean, like if you really didn't trust somebody that's sitting next to you in an office to get the work done, I question
Right.
your judgment of hiring that person in the first place.
Yeah, that's true.
So the you can have effectiveness. In fact, I think the nature of the accounting work, once someone's trained, the nature of accounting work is it's best done remotely because it requires long periods of uninterrupted work
Yeah.
where that's not happening in an office anymore. That's happening in a private office in your home.
Right. I bet the female-owned accounting firm, I bet their retention rate is nearing
Through the
100%.
roof. And in a time, so the actual retention rate of firms under 25 million in revenue is about 20%. And I said retention. What I meant to say is the turnover rate of
Okay.
firms is about 20%.
Okay.
So that means every year a firm with under $25 million in revenue is losing 20% of its accounting
Yeah,
staff
that's a lot.
during a time when finding qualified talent is the top three issues of firms in that size range. So you've got to, and we're all growing, Adam. I mean, like the whole industry seems to be growing. Demand is through the roof for our profession. So you've got to deal with the back hiring of the 20% that you lost, plus the gap you need to grow your firm and
Mm.
prevent overwhelm in the staff that you have. So I would be doing everything I possibly could to keep people and have a clean strategy around that.
Yeah, makes sense. It reminded me of an article. This conversation reminds me of an article I read a couple of weeks ago that said a lot of people that have returned to office, an actual physical office since the pandemic, they find themselves still having pretty much all their meetings online on Zoom or and chatting with their coworkers who are just in the office next door. Because just they're physically there doesn't mean that they still don't meet on on Zoom and whatnot. That was
That's
kind of funny.
interesting. That has changed the game, hasn't it? I would personally prefer to go to an office every day. I do. My whole company is remote,
Yeah,
but I rent an office in downtown in Pensacola where I live because I want to be in an office. I would prefer. I think being in the office with your colleagues is better than not being in being around colleagues. However, that it's the answer to your first question is it's the toothpaste is out of the tube. Like
yeah,
because remote work exists and employers are hiring remote, it means that it's like you can't change that fact so that you have to go with it because you're competing against that and people are going to choose that remote opportunity every time. The pay rate's the same,
yeah.
the flexibility is better.
So I wouldn't.
You're going to have to adapt to this. And it's so easy.
Yeah, makes sense. Let me ask you this, Jeff. When you started AccountingFly and you started helping accounting firms connect them with remote workers, what is something that that your program did for a client that you just didn't expect?
Um, I actually have something it's a question I wasn't prepared for, and yet there's something on my mind that I love. So we were working with a firm in San Francisco who I loved this firm. They've since been acquired, but around 2019, we had made some hires for them in San Francisco, and they were short a tax manager. And I'm not an accountant. I don't know if I told you that, but I came up through sales. I worked at monster.com, so I understand like the hiring world
Mm,
and I was getting to know the client and understanding the pain that was felt inside this firm as they could not place this tax manager role. So now I understand the pain it was causing for the partners who were playing the role of the manager and the associates and the staff who were and the other managers who were sort of covering for this role. So
yeah.
because the manager was not in the in the chain of command. It was crazy for everyone involved. And this position was open at this downtown San Francisco firm for 2 years.
Wow.
It was a $30 million firm.
Wow.
So think about all the chaos that caused. They're competing against the Silicon Valley hires, at corporate. They're not going to get this person in San Francisco.
Yeah.
2 years, I'm just trying to convince this owner and the partner to give it a shot and hire a remote person. And I remember him calling me. It was in January, it was right before tax season, and he said, "All right, we want to try it." Our team at AccountingFly hired a tax manager for this guy in about 18 days.
Wow.
But here's the thing: the person we hired was in Philadelphia, so literally on the other side of the continent. And even I was like, "Oh, I don't know if this may not work. This
Yeah.
feels wrong. What? How's this person going to do business development? How is he going to be a partner? Is he going to be on a partner track? Can he really serve these clients?" That person ended up becoming a partner at that firm and has been there for years now. And it was such a problem solved for them. It opened their eyes to remote work. They actually end up exiting. And I think part of the value of their exit is because they embraced remote work and could
Yeah.
reliably hire people. And did it cause pain inside their firm and the owners? Absolutely, it caused pain to have to rework some systems to allow for a tax manager in Philadelphia. But it was such a success story. It actually, at the time for our business, we were really figuring out our identity. You don't. It takes a lot of courage to take a stand like we're only going to hire remote people. But we did make that move that year, and that hire was part of the reason why. Because I was like, I just want to be in this field. I don't want AccountingFly to be Robert Half and fill jobs in all these markets. I want to find remote jobs
Mm.
for firms and just focus on that. And so it was a fun win for everybody.
Yeah. Sounds like it. That's awesome. Well, Jeff, if somebody listening wants to check out AccountingFly, where do they go?
Hopefully, you'll visit accountingfly.com, and you can book a meeting with our head of new accounts, Liz Branch. She's our COO,
Okay.
and you can learn more about our services there. We do full time and we do contract. And we always tell a client if it's not going to work or not before
Mm.
we're not taking anyone's money if we can't make a hire. That's why we have like a 90% placement success rate over the past 3 years, because
Wow.
we will say no. Sometimes you can't make the hire, but we have a pretty good feel for it. So check out AccountingFly there, and I'm on Twitter at Jeff Phillips _ the one that goes below. That's the underscore. That's my name, and I'm on LinkedIn too.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for being here today.
Adam, thank you, man. Love what you're doing. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. To everyone listening or watching, thank you so much for spending the last few minutes with us as we discussed how to escape the accountant's trap. Bye for now.